I went to a 12-step addiction recovery program to try to overcome a serious food and sugar addiction. It was killing me. It was literally killing me. And when I went, I tried and failed for almost 20 years. Finally, after becoming suicidal, I was like, I think I'm ready to do whatever this is going to take. And I tried, and after a few days of working with a sponsor, I did have like this mystical, miraculous lifting of my compulsion to eat like that. It just lifted, and it was amazing. I didn't understand how it happened. I just knew I had white knuckled my way through things for a few days, and then voila, I woke up and it was gone. I cried in gratitude every day. I was thanking God for this miracle that had happened. And then me and my sponsor did not continue to work together. We had a scheduling issue. And in that space, I lost that miracle. It went away. I started binging again. I was going back to my really dangerous eating habits. And so I thought, that's okay. I just need to get another sponsor and try again. So I got another sponsor, and I remembered that it had only taken a few days of kind of white knuckling my way through those compulsive tendencies before that magical, mystical thing had happened. And so I just said to myself, when I'm ready. All it's going to take is a few days. So on Monday, because I was already in that last meal mindset. So I was already binging, and I was in the food, and I didn't want to give it up. I didn't even want to give it up. I was in my happy place, lost in the food, drowning in the chocolate and the sugar and all of those things. That was where I wanted to be more than anywhere else. I realize now it was because in that space I was kind of being able to numb out my pain, really. And so anyway, I just thought, when I'm ready, I'll do that 3-day thing again and get that magical, mysterious lifting of my compulsion. I never did it. But in that space, I stayed committed, and I stayed dedicated to doing a few simple daily tasks that allowed God to come into my life more fully, and He started to change me from the inside out. So basically, I was doing my addiction and this God thing side by side each day. Now, because I did them both at the same time, I was able to see in real time which one actually gave me the relief that I was looking for. And over time, it was just really obvious that God was going to do it. He's going to do it better, faster. It was going to last way longer. But also, it became really clear to me that the thing that I was getting out of the food, it was counterfeit. It was pretend. It was a shadow of the thing that God was able to give to me. Now, I didn't change overnight, mostly because I didn't trust that it was going to happen the next day. Even though God might have done that for me today, even though today He might have lifted my craving, even though today He might have rescued me mid-binge from even wanting another bite of food, maybe He couldn't do it tomorrow. Because the next day, when I was upset again and dysregulated again and craving again, I just thought, well, He did it yesterday, but today I'm 10 times more upset. Today I'm craving this food 10 times more than I was yesterday. And it took me a while to really give God that consistent opportunity to show up and do this thing for me. And the more I gave Him the opportunity, the more space I gave Him to do it, the more He did it, and the more I was able to trust that He would do it. And again, that this thing that He was going to be able to give me was going to happen better, faster. It was going to last way longer than the thing that the food gave me. Now, I did not give up my addiction. I did not give up my compulsive eating. I did not give up the sugar the way that I had the other time, where I had this miraculous, mysterious lifting of it. But because I was in the trenches with my addiction and invited God to come with me there in order to rescue me, I'm kind of glad it worked out the way it did for a few reasons. One, I know the way out. Like, I know the way out. I know it backwards and forwards. I teach it to people all the time. I know the way out in the heat of my addiction, in the heat of my cravings, in the heat of my urges. I know how to neutralize them. I know how to unravel that moment where all I want to do is eat. Nothing else matters. God doesn't matter. My promises don't matter. Nothing else is on my radar except food, 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 food. I know how to unravel those moments. I don't even have those moments anymore because I've done this work. I've done this practice. I have become so fluent in it that I don't get there in the first place because I know what the markers are 10 choices before that to help me to avoid from getting there in the first place. It's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing to see what's happened in my life. So like I said, I'm really glad that I hadn't done that miraculous, mysterious lifting thing, because now I know exactly how it works. I know the cause and effect relationship. Don't get me wrong, it's still a miracle. God is still doing this cool thing that I don't know how he does it, but I do know my part. I know how to show up in the conversation with God that allows him to show up and do that magic trick, to do that miracle over and over and over again. And I trust him now. I trust him more than I ever trusted my addiction. Because again, I've done them side by side. I've done them both in the same night. And what God has shown me is that it doesn't matter. He will show up as soon as I ask, whether that is before, during, or after a binge, before, during, or after going into my addiction. Sometimes I've exhausted myself in my addiction before I will finally limp my way to God and say, fine, my best effort didn't work. Can you help me? And he does. And when I say, can you help me? I'm not saying, hey, can you take away this craving? No. It's much more basic than that. I recognize the things that are creating the craving in the first place. It is a few fundamental emotional experiences that cause me to be so dysregulated that I'm just looking for relief. I'm just looking for peace. I'm just looking for a mechanism to help control my emotional experience and bring me back to some sense of baseline so that I'm not suffering. Well, now I let God do that for me. I don't need my addiction. He does it so much better. I realize how counterfeit that is. And so I've outgrown my addiction, honestly. And it was by doing this side by side, the God thing with my addiction, that really allowed me to see it. Because I think when we wrestle our addiction out of our life and we're white knuckling it and we're kind of holding it up there like it's a behind this dam, well, when we put that distance between us and our addiction, before we have come to realize and learn what God can do for us in that space, what we do is we just create a window of opportunity for us to fantasize about our addiction. At least I know I did. As soon as I took sugar out of my life, as soon as I took all those stimulating foods and those stimulating eating practices out of my life, all I did was fantasize about them. Anytime I was emotionally dysregulated, or if I was bored, if I was depressed, or even if I was too happy and feeling unstable there because I didn't know how long it would last, so happiness even made me feel anxious, I would start to fantasize about food and how it would taste and the smooth and the creaminess and the sweetness. And I would fantasize until I found my way back into it. Well, listen, if you're doing both side by side, if you're in the heat of your addiction and you are exhausting yourself in a binge of whatever it is that is your addiction of choice, it's really hard to fantasize about that, because we know that first bit, that first bite, that first hit, that first whatever it is, yeah, that brings some sweetness to it. And then everything that comes after is painful. It's painful waking up the next morning and having to deal with the aftermath. It's painful in 1,000 ways, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And when you do that side by side with God, you realize the addiction gives, and then it takes, and it takes, and it takes. God gives, and he gives, and he gives, and he gives. And when you do those both side by side, it's really easy to see which one is real. Now, I talk about this all the time. I spend my life teaching this, trying to let people know how to move out of addiction by chasing peace, not running away from fear or running away from pain or trying to avoid rock bottom, but chasing something that is pulling you and that is beautiful and amazing. I unraveled my addiction by being in the trenches with both God and my addiction in the same space. And I found something so beautiful that it pulled me to the other side. That's how I know I'm so resilient in my recovery today. It's because this is what I was looking for in my addiction. And because I found it more fully by allowing God to really step into the driver's seat of my life, why would I go anywhere else? I found the thing that I was looking for. My recovery is solid and it is resilient because I'm not fantasizing about my addiction anymore. I see it for what it was. It was counterfeit. It didn't satisfy me. Not the way that I am today. I'll never go back to it. I'd like to tell you more about this. I send out a weekly newsletter because I know all of these principles, they might sound new, and it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. So that weekly newsletter gives you an opportunity to get bite-sized pieces every week for me to build on these principles for you and to teach you these practices slowly over time so that you can institute them and practice them from week to week and then keep building on it. So please sign up for my newsletter. You will see that link below. Thanks.